Interracial couples. Come on. Loving versus Virginia. Interracial marriages. Interracial relationships. The Malcolms, the Martins, the Tias, the Tamaras, the Samuels, the Umars, the Amalas, God, faith, religion, the Bible, racism, culture, ethnicity. We are getting into it today, friends. What does the owner's manual have to say about interracial marriages and relationships that are leading to marriage? You're now listening to the No Pills Podcast, your best resource for cultivating meaningful, healthy, long-lasting, romantic relationships that bloom into strong marriages. Welcome to No Pills. Welcome to No Pills. Love fully scripted. We back. You back. Thank you for being here. I am your host, your God. Through the ups and downs, the chiasms, the mazes of love, the maze of love. G-Man, your man, God's man, Brother Gordon. So glad you're back. Ha! Friends, today, I'm excited today. Interracial couples. Come on. Loving versus Virginia. Interracial marriages. Interracial relationships. The Malcolms, the Martins, the Tias, the Tamaras, the Samuels, the Umars, the Amalas, God, faith, religion, the Bible, racism, culture, ethnicity. We are getting into it today, friends. What does the owner's manual have to say about interracial marriages and relationships that are leading to marriage? Don't you want to know, friends? Statistic for you. According to the 2021 American Community Survey, 19% of married opposite-sex couples in the United States, the fact that we have to state that, God help us, sex couples in the United States are interracial. 19%. That's coming from Pew Research, pardon me. Were you expecting that number to be higher or lower? 19% of opposite-sex married couples in the United States are interracial. Is it only 19%? Do you think that's a lot? Do you think that's a little bit? Let me know in the chat. I want to start by giving you a little bit of my testimony on this topic today. That being, I was in an interracial relationship which led to a marriage for almost 20 years. Okay, we were together for 2 years before we got married. And we were together, married almost 18 years before my late wife passed away at the age of 37. And she was Puerto Rican, okay? Boricua, all right? Boricua, all right? She was a Boricua. So I am an African-American by descent. I am an American. You may have noticed that. I am a little melanated, have a little extra melanin to the skin tone. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure you can tell, you can see that. And we were together from New York originally, and New York is quite the melting pot of people. And it was not a strange thing necessarily to be in an interracial marriage, but not everyone is, as the statistics and numbers are clearly showing us. And I think when we speak about interracial relationships and marriages, we have to not overlook the fact that I think it's a little different feel here in America, in the States, and maybe anywhere else where the slave trade has heavily impacted a country or influenced it, that you may get some pushback when you talk about interracial relationships, and maybe even particularly when you speak about Black and white, Caucasian and African getting together, stemming anywhere from apartheid to the transatlantic slave trade to segregation in the United States. And so I want to kind of just paint and see a little bit of a backdrop of that. Give us some context, really, before we get further into this topic today And I know there's some younger listeners out there who may not be familiar with a lot of what I may be talking about or even speaking about right now. So I would like to check out this video from Vice News. And I get online, I find the information that I'm looking for to put together these podcasts so we can have something to talk about. I'm not pro any of these outlets or platforms. It's just data, information. And I found this to be a good, I thought this would give us some really good background, or at least some context of what interracial relationships are like, have been like, and just the growth of that here in the United States. So let's check this out together. All right. ABC News, Vice News, HBO, let's get it. We talked to interracial couples 50 years after the Loving versus Virginia case here in the United States. And this was I think this was put out like maybe 6 years ago or something like that.
I didn't realize how bad it was until we got married.
50 years ago today, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of Richard and Mildred Loving, granting them, and anyone, the right to marry a spouse of a different race. It was a historic moment for civil rights in America, but also a very personal one.
I just, to think the things that have been outlawed, illegal, enforced here in the United States of America is crazy when you go back and do your research. Like, there were Sunday laws in the colony of Virginia. Like, if you didn't go to church on Sunday, like, you would get killed after the third offense. Wild. They outlawed interracial marriages, literally got into people's personal lives and told them who they could and could not marry. Speaking like a dragon. Anyway, let's continue. God have mercy.
We asked couples to mark the anniversary by explaining what the Loving decision means to them and their families.
Wow.
These were simple country people who were not activists. They were not civil rights people. They were in love.
You know, we're talking about a time when 40 states in America would regard us as criminals.
Criminals. 40 states in the United States of America. Oh my goodness. This is not that long ago, friends. You were a criminal if you married another person.
Okay, that's no longer the case.
There's actually one simple issue, and the issue is, may a state proscribe a marriage between two adult consenting individuals because of their race?
My parents were completely cool with it. They met Errol quite early on, I think a year after, not even a year after we met.
I'd seen Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, so of course there was a concern for me.
We were all slightly naively, I think, in my family, not fully tuned in to the racial divide in America.
Now, that's something important to note. When there's a level of naivety and ignorance about an issue, you can make uninformed decisions, and you know your decisions are not colored. Forgive the pun. When you go to enter into this relationship, when you bring someone into your home, and when you're kind of maybe in a I don't know if I'll say a cloister, but when you're kind of in this shell of your own, and it's kind of like cave, this part of your world where you don't see skin tones, where you don't see colors, and you don't know there's a problem. You don't know there's racial divide in your own country that you're living in, where it's a serious, where slavery has gone on. This is amazing to me. And, you know, let me know if you think that's good or bad to have that level of maybe ignorance or unawareness of what's going on in your country. Is it good or bad? I mean, maybe one could argue, well, it was good because she was able to find love and get into a loving relationship, but maybe there's some negatives to that.
Vaughn has never been to my parents' home, and he's not welcome there.
That'll do it. That will do it. Not welcomed in her parents. Listen, let me tell you something, friends. I became a Christian before I got married. But before my Christian state, I said to myself, man, if my wife's parents, if my potential future in-laws, if they got some real problem with me, if they're going to have some issues with the color of my skin, even though I was so into their daughter, this is just Me speaking personally, you don't have to feel this way. You don't have to do these type of things. I was going to be out. I just felt that that was too much of a headache that I was not prepared or willing to deal with. I didn't want to be at family dinners getting called out of my name, getting looked at crazy. I just was not on board. So this is Von J. Buffalo and Gail Russell Buffalo. Man, salute to you, I guess, brother, because I'm like, I would not welcomed. Treat me like I can't come to your house. Like, I'm your husband. Let me know how you would handle this. Would you get it? That'll do it, man. Listen, you could keep that, man. I'm not built like that. I'm not built like that. I feel like it's unnecessary persecution that you are subjecting yourself to.
For a little while, I read the Riot Act. Not just by my parents. My parents didn't know how to deal with it, but my brothers were pretty upset. And we're still finding our way. My parents met Vaughn in May of last year. They came to New York.
Okay, listen. Let me just say something here. This is a black-white couple, okay? I have friends, okay? Husband's male, wife is Latin, like myself when I was married. And the Latin brothers not on board with the black boyfriend that becomes the husband and they have children together. Salute to that brother too. Like, I'm just not built. I don't know if I'm willing for the headache. I mean, I know love, but it's like, why put ourselves through this? You know, I know somebody in the chat would be like, nah, I'm going to fight. But just your brothers don't like me. Your parents don't like me because I'm not Spanish, because I'm not Asian, because I'm not. That seems wild to me. Like, what a headache. Like, did they love our children now? How are they treating our kids? Do I trust them around my kids? Like, it's just, friends, it's just too much. That's just too much. I don't, All right.
One time, Chris came to me as we were at a family event, and even though he's coming from a very liberal, very progressive, very
13 years married,
anti-racist family, that when they see me, they see a black woman, and that's always in the interactions that I have with his family.
What does that look like? That's always in the interactions I have with their family. So it's like every time you interact with them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're black, right? You know you're melanated, right?" Like, what does that look like? That was a black and a white couple. She was black, he was white. Like, what? 13 years married, and she's still saying this. Here's the Rev, John, Rev Jackie Lewis, married 12 years.
Notice color. I'm not colorblind. It's not that white folks aren't white folks and black folks aren't black folks, but this particular white folk is my soulmate and my best friend.
I don't know about calling her husband white folk. That was wild. That's wild to me. Like, you just called your husband, he white folk? He white folk to you? Like, that's, I sound like some old slave talk. Like, we free now, boss. We free now. But like, it's, stick around. We're going to get to the owner's menu. Stick around. I promise I'm taking you somewhere. Just stick around with me. Hopefully no one's blood is boiling. We're just trying to just look at this, take a step back and just take it in. And then we are going to process this.
Time when we are in public, when I'm not aware that we're an interracial couple. When we walk into a room, people take notice, okay? Very early on, black women made it absolutely clear that this was not cool.
Yo, shame on you. Shame on you. You know, when we would go out, I'm gonna say something. Living in New York City, when my wife and I were dating, it's funny. I would forget that we were interracial, right? My wife was just my wife to me. She was just D, right? She was just my wife, my girlfriend, just my best friend. I didn't see, like, it wasn't this predominant thing in my mind. Ever. But I would notice when I would see other interracial couples, like, it would stand out to me. And then I was like, I'll be reminded, yeah, we're interracial too. So it would be this little connection thing. Like, I would notice it. Like, it wouldn't go unnoticed. I don't know if I had any negative or positive feelings about it, but I did notice it, right? So I think the brother here, what he's saying is like, he noticed it because he was getting like energy from people and feedback from people to the point where he's saying like, yeah, women of color were like obviously upset that he has married a Caucasian woman. Shame on you. Cut that out. Let's go.
I had asked Janet to marry me on several occasions, and she refused. And she refused because I was serving in the Senate. And she was afraid that our being married would impede or somehow impair my reelection.
If they had been racist and held that against him, I would never have forgiven myself because I could go on loving him without a marriage certificate.
Yeah, this is so wild. This is so wild. So wild. You running, you're in the Senate and you're in love with this woman of color, and you got to be like, no, we got to worry and think about everybody else. Listen, this is as old as time, man. This is as old as time. There's always been ethnocentrism in the world. Okay, we're gonna get into. We're gonna peel this back more, and you'll notice that the gospel, Christ's instructions, even took into account that racism, that ethnocentrism, and how he instructed his apostles when and where and how to preach the gospel. Let's keep going.
The state is ignoring a very important point, and that is the right of Richard and Mildred Loving to wake up in the morning or to go to sleep at night, knowing that the sheriff will not be knocking on their door or shining a light in their face in the privacy of their bedroom.
Boy, we're really getting personal here. Folks in her family praying that we don't get pregnant. And that's happening. That was told to Gail.
Yo. Oh, my goodness. So they're religious. Her family's religious. They believe in God. And they're praying that their sister, their daughter, who is now married in love with a man of color, does not have children. Praying that. Like, so as they're praying that, they have to believe that God is going to answer that prayer, that God is with that. Like, wow, this is wild. Like, we're going to delve into it, but this couple, like, how are they processing that? You know what I'm saying? Like, how are the holidays really? Like, what, like, they're like, hey, we don't want you to come to our house. Man, if you have kids, then those kids have to come to our houses, and those kids are colored, you know? Like, and then they'll be, and it's like, that's wild. Like, this is what you have to be aware of. Like, you have to know what you are. I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but this is what you have. Like, do not be ignorant to the world in which you live. Do not be ignorant to the world in which you live, friends.
And I can't fathom that.
I think any preconceptions that you're gonna have, that interracial marriages for some eugenic reason don't work, just are shattered as soon as you see a healthy child. You can't look at those boys playing. They're healthy, they're loud, they're skin knees, they're perfect.
For me, my concern was that they would be prey to certain social definitions of who they're supposed to be. I wanted their cultural horizons and their formation of their own identities to be as open as possible.
My daughter referred to herself as orange when she was little. That was her term. So we did that.
Yeah.
You know?
She once drew a picture of herself that was literally half white and half black. That's a little spooky.
The children, keep that in mind.
No one can articulate it better than Richard Loving when he said to me, Mr. Cohen, tell the court I love my wife, and it is just unfair that I can't live with her in Virginia.
Virginia. What's going on, Virginia? Mercy, man. Have mercy. I'm actually going to be out there in a couple weeks, too, for a conference, a youth conference. Come on, Virginia.
Same age as Emmett Till. So I was 14 when I realized what white people could do to black people in this country and get away with it. So
it's heavy. That's heavy. Same age as Emmett Till. It's heavy.
When this white boy at Butler University asked me to date him, I said, no, I don't date white boys. However, if I had continued with that attitude, I would have missed Bill.
being married to John keeps me accountable. Like I can never do they. I can't do they. They are. They, because I'm waking up to this guy, my husband.
Intermarriage is intensifying throughout the country. So that demographic fact gives us a certain kind of legitimacy. Not only us, but our children. So we actually feel that we've been pioneers.
Now, I think that marrying who you want to is a right that no man should have anything to do with. It's a God-given right, I think.
Friends, it's sometimes hard to fathom, especially me being from New York, that this was a reality in our country all not that long ago, friends. So when we talk about interracial marriages, we can't remove the backdrop to which these relationships are painted on in North America, right? We're talking about segregation, hatred, racism, dogs, fire hoses, a fear to be seen with someone of the opposite sex, fear that you might lose your life, that your children would be ridiculed and mocked and bullied. This is real. 1967, friends. 1967, okay? Loving versus Virginia. Not that long ago. Not that long ago at all. Jesus is coming, man. It breaks my heart even to even think that this is, wow. Okay. Let me just continue to give us some more. I want to give you some more samples of what ideas are out here floating around still in present day. Okay. So there's the backdrop to the history of what, interracial marriages have to kind of come out of and are growing out of, unfortunately. But let me show you this as well. Now, I know a lot of times, because of the history of this country, we tend to think that the drive and push for segregation was just predominantly on the Caucasian side of the debate, of the controversy. But here's a brother by the name of Dr. Umar.
Let me ask you a question, Dr. Umar. Are you totally against interracial relationships?
I am totally against it, and I want to make sure you understand why. Mm-hmm. It's not because...
Wow.
Cut it out, Envy.
Mercy.
Cut it out, Envy.
Don't do that, Envy. I'm having a serious conversation.
We have a name for it. We have a name for it.
Okay.
The Snow Bunny Crisis.
Okay.
The Snow Bunny. This brother's serious, too. This doctor serious with this rhetoric. Let's get it.
I'm against the Snow Bunny Crisis. And I want your white listeners to understand. Because people be trying to say stuff like, he's the Black Hitler. I'm not the Black Hitler. I am in no way interested in hurting or harming the life of any human, white, Asian, Chinese. I believe in respecting everybody.
Well, praise the Lord for that. Thank you. Let's keep hope alive. Let's keep people alive. Oh, goodness.
The reason I'm against interracial marriage, Envy and Charlemagne, is because marriage is an economic contract. It's an economic contract. Most women do not marry down in status. They marry up. And if you don't believe me, show me a rich white woman married to a broke-ass black man.
Okay. Wow. All right. Hypergamy. He's talking about hypergamy.
Have you ever seen a rich white woman marry a broke-ass black man? No, you have not, and you never will.
All right, where's he taking us?
Because marriage ain't about love. Whoa. It's not colorblind, and it is totally economic.
All right. I can't go any further with this. This is. Let's just go to the owner's manual to address what love is. Okay? Let me fire up my trusty. Let me open my owner's manual here. Okay? I'm opening my owner's manual. I'm going to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Hope you have one of these. You need this for life, friends. Okay? Love suffereth long. What is love, friends? What is love, friends? If I have not love, I have not anything. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4, love suffereth long and is kind. Love envieth not, love vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, doeth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, does not seek her own. Love is not economic. It thinketh no evil. Love rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. Love beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Love never fails. This is the problem when you have education, when you have degrees, when you have intellect, apart from the owner's manual, apart from the source. Your relationship's a vehicle. The owner's manual is the Bible. The manufacturer is God. When you remove the instruction from the manufacturer and how to operate your relationships, you will fall into mechanical problems like these, where we don't understand what love is. But yet we're going to speak and teach on relationships. It's kind of crazy, huh? That's not it. Dr. Umar, he's not alone in this type of mindset. Let me show you another clip here. From someone that many of you will be well familiar with. This is a clip from a Malcolm X speech.
Importance of protecting your own woman. You can't go in a white neighborhood and get a white woman. You can't get the white man's daughter in his neighborhood. You can't get his wife or his mother or his sister in his neighborhood. Then why should you let him walk around here in your neighborhood with your wife and your mother and your daughter and your sister?
Segregation. People are promoting segregation. Wild. All right, so now let me bring you back to our time period with Kevin Samuels, the late Kevin Samuels, kind of seen as a relationship, a guru, so to say, for the maybe for the Black community predominantly. But let's see what his thoughts are on interracial marriages. He was on a podcast here talking about this.
What I can see from the data is 80+% of people date inside their group. Me personally, I've dated everything. I say make yourself the best version of yourself and pick from the best you have available. Because at the end of the day, we're all human, but most people want their group.
Right.
See, what I think the disconnect comes when you feel like you're having to pick from lesser options, but that's a function of you.
All right, so there's some little bit of common sense here. Be the best you can be, and whoever matches that energy, who's the best them they can be, then get on together and get about your business and have a happy life. I'm not mad at that. And I think, where that's coming from, if I could speak on that a little bit, what's really being said there, to a lesser or greater degree, is the color of one's skin does not dictate the depth or quality of one's character. All right, so before we move on, there's one more clip I wanted to share with you. And this is from, I think it was Tia Mowry, interracial child, grew as an interracial child, now an adult woman. And I want to just let you hear some of her feedback and her experiences in growing up as an interracial, biracial child.
Really had the conversation of, your dad's white, your mom's Black, you're mixed.
So she said they never had that conversation. They didn't have to have that conversation until
we as children started to experience racism outside of the home. And then that was the first time I remember being aware of my mom is Black and my dad is white. Because growing up in the house, we never thought about that. You know what I mean? Like, that's my dad, that's my mom, they love each other, we're a family, boom, that's it. But, sometimes when you get out into the real world, most of the times when you get out into the real world, you get hit with reality. And not everybody is nice. And I remember I was actually called the N-word when I was living in Texas at the time. I was in third
Shout out to Texas.
grade. So that puts me, at 7, 8 years old? And I remember being called that, and it was just really weird. And I knew that something was wrong because of the reaction that I had gotten around me. remember I was near my locker, and it was this boy, and I actually had a little bit of a crush on him. He was really cute. He was a white boy.
Is that wild? I got a little bit of a crush on you. You're cute white boy. She says, cute white boy. He's like, yeah, you like me?
And he called me that. And I was like, okay. And then, there were kids around us, and then the reaction of, what I had just heard, that's when I knew. I was like, okay, this is wrong. This is not right. And so that's when I went home and I had discussed it with my mom and my dad. And then that's when I remember them sitting down and clearly having the conversation with us.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think it's wise, if you are producing biracial children, to wait until they have a racist interaction, or are you hoping for the best that they never will? Is that realistic? Or do you just kind of prepare them for the reality of, hey, you're different than other people, everywhere, from your skin type, your complexion, your hair type, your weight? I mean, kids can be mean about anything, but are you putting them at a disservice, bringing them into a world, into a biracial world, into a biracial experience in a non-biracial world, predominantly non-biracial world, biracial world? Is that something that's wise? Let me know in the chat, man. What do you think about that? Put it in the comment section. Let me, I question that. So let's get into it, friends. Let's peel this thing back, okay? We've heard from different people, different 67. We've got the separatists, we've got the biracial children, and there's more I could have given you, but I think we've painted a good background for us to kind of maneuver through, okay? Interracial marriages were illegal at one point. Segregation was legal at one point. You got to overcome that if you're thinking about going into an interracial, biracial relationship. There are families still today that believe that ethnicities should not mix. That's a reality. If you don't want to believe it or not, it's real, friends. Interracial couples experience racism. Going to happen. I should tell you this story. Okay, as I mentioned to you, my wife and I'm Black. She was Puerto Rican before she passed. We were together on our honeymoon. I never spoke to my wife about any racism I had ever experienced as a Black person, or even questionable interactions with someone that was not melanated. If it was it was racially motivated, said interactions, okay? I didn't want to throw a pity party for myself. I didn't want to boo-hoo, but I realized that though my wife was not white, Caucasian, she was fair-skinned. She was a fair-skinned Puerto Rican. So I didn't think we had the same interactions and experiences in the world based upon your skin color. So we're on our honeymoon. We're out in a place called Milford, Pennsylvania, over at the Poconos. I'm putting it on blast, letting you know this is many, many moons ago, but not too many moons ago, 2003 to be exact, okay? We're there. To make a long story short, I wanted to go out and I needed to break a $100 bill. We were looking for something to do outside of the cabin. It was December, maybe looking for horseback riding or something, sledding. So we're getting off the little resort that we're on. And we go into some local stores, and we go into like a strip mall, and I want to go break a $100 bill. And as we're walking to this, it was actually a pipe store, and we're walking to this pipe store, I see a Confederate flag in one of the window panes. I look at my wife. She is oblivious, does not see it, does not recognize it. Why would she, right? Like, would she have a reason to? But I noticed it immediately. I was like, interesting. We walk inside. And there is, on the left, when we walk through the door on the left-hand side, there's all these articles on the wall about a Confederate flag and why this business owner would not take down his flags, et cetera, yada, yada, yada. All this racial tension that he had posted on the wall there. We had time to look at that and read that because when we walked in, he was behind the counter, lowered down behind the counter, we could not see him, he could not see us. He raised himself up above the counter, looked us directly in the face, looked me directly in the face, and then bowed right back down with no hello, no good day, may I help you, nothing. Above his counter, there was a sign that read, all children left unattended will be sold as slaves. 2003, Milford, Pennsylvania. Y'all better wake up. You heard me right. So we back out of there ever so quickly, right? And we go into another little store in the strip mall. It's like a little doily store, a little odds and ends store where I guess, little trinkets and, little things for your tables and your, all this type of things, little cups and everything. So as soon as I open the door, there's a few nice older white women in there doing whatever they're doing, okay? Assuming they run the store, and there was a rack that held magnets on it. And for some reason, this caught my eye immediately. And as I'm turning the rack to continue to read magnets are reading things like this: "We'll never be out of job. Slaves will always be sown." I said, where in the Twilight Zone? What time machine did I just enter? 2003, first day of being married interracially. And I thank God for that experience because it didn't have to come from me. My wife got to experience that for herself, being married to a person of color day one. And over our time of being married, there were other little instances here and there where my wife began to notice and pick up on some of the unfair treatment that she was now going to be a part of and receiving just because of the color of my skin, and it has nothing to do with the content of my character. She was working at a facility once where there were older people at the facility that she was taking care of. She was a registered nurse. And there was an older gentleman in the wheelchair that had rolled over to me, a Caucasian gentleman, and he sat there and was talking to me a little bit in his chair. I was waiting for her to get done with work, blah, 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 and then I leave. He doesn't know that this is my wife. He thinks my wife is Asian. He does not realize that she is Latina. And he says to her as I exit the building, you have to watch them because they'll steal something. Taken back she was. Taken back. Welcome to being interracially married in the United States of America, friends. Can't make this up if I wanted to. Now, I want to show you some really deep stuff from the owner's manual that maybe is going to potentially bring some comfort, shed some light, and just break this thing down for you, and maybe free you from the maybe the innate natural reaction to want to throw up in your mouth and be angry, okay? Many mixed children give testimonies of growing up and being bullied, picked on, not belonging, feeling like they don't belong, they don't fit in anywhere. Are they accepted by people of color? Are they accepted by people, Caucasians? And then they feel like, I'm left to only hang out with other biracial children who don't make up a lot of the... So if you don't get to fall into and identify with one of those groups, then you kind of just feel like you're in limbo. And this is the testimony of many biracial children out there. Okay, so I just double checked all this and got into this as I was preparing for this podcast today. And listen, being from New York, I'm going to tell you, most of a good portion of my friends that I went to high school with, college, that have grown up, become adults, they are interracially married. A good portion of my friends are. And I don't know what the percentages are, but this is not a thing that's out of nature for me in my friend groups and in my associations from my growing up. Okay, so it is happening. It is out here, but it's only 19%, right, of the total in America marriages of the opposite sex. I've had friends have come to me. Okay, a Latin friend of mine came to me and was like, man, should I marry said person because they're Caucasian? Like, it was a concern. It was a thought. How would their family really respond? This is real life scenarios. This is my own real people I know. Even myself, to be honest, I question, like, man, in college, dating people of all different ethnic backgrounds, I question being in North America with the history we have of segregation and slavery. Like, do I want to be with someone who is Caucasian? Like, well, I can't take being at a family function reunion and that my spouse having racist family members, they're going to be calling me the N-word and out of name and hate me. And like our brother here, we saw, you can't come over to the house. Like, I just don't have energy for that. I think that is a waste of time and a waste of energy that can be directed to preaching the gospel, showing love to other people, getting on with your life, right? And so I know there's people out there that are probably saying, oh, brother, but No one should be able to restrict your love that you're going to have. And but listen, man, you got to live in we live in the real world. And you have to make a decision in what battles you want to fight and which ones you don't want to fight. And I respect whatever decision you make on that front. Whatever decision, I'm just saying for Brother Gordon, it's not my vibe. It's attitude over skin color. It's character, content of the character over skin color. I think that is what has led most people to engage in interracial marriages and relationships, because they've fallen in love with the person. They appreciate the character of the person, the getting along, they're physically, they're fit, they're friendly, they're cooperative. They feel safe in the arms of this man, and they listen, I don't know if there are people out there who are trying to appropriate. I don't know if there's people out there who are just trying to ride a wave, trying to right slavery, trying to be pioneers of. I don't know what the motive is behind everyone's involvement, but I would pray and hope that it is for those good reasons, as far as getting along and having a greater purpose in mind and believing that God has brought you together. I would hope for those who, like myself, were involved in an interracial relationship. Now, what does the owner manual say? Okay. Is there any light we can get from the owner's manual on this issue of interracial relationships? Acts 17, verse 26 is the first thing that comes to my mind. There's only one race, friends. What, Brother Gordon? I know race is like phenotype and how people look, who look the same, they get grouped into a race, a particular race, but there's only one race, the human race. And God says, and have made of one blood all nations of men, have made of one blood all nations of men, for to dwell on all the face of the earth. The human race is the only race. And then you have ethnicity, culture. Friends, we're all humans. We all are a part of the human race. We are all children of Adam. No matter the amount of melanin, no matter our features, we are brothers and sisters. We are the human race. We make up the human race. Now, our ethnicities and culture and languages and customs vary greatly, widely. And if someone does not want to lose that, I can respect that. I can appreciate that. I can honor that, right? Just know that cultures are not holy in and of themselves. Cultures are not eternal in and of themselves. Stick with me. 2 Corinthians 6, verse 14 from the owner's manual says this: be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship have righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion have light with darkness? Amos 3, verse 3 says, can two walk together except they be agreed? These are the overarching principles and underpinnings that the Bible sets before the Christian when it comes to who they are going to marry. We are one blood, okay? There are our ideologies and our thought processes of eternity and what's important in life. Our morality should be in sync, should be in line. What I'm saying is you don't find much about color of skin in regards to marriage, but there is some more light I'm going to shed on you. In 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 2 from the owner's manual, there was clear instruction to the nation of Israel not to marry foreign women because they would lead them into idolatry. So again, the religious practice truth was the determining factor, not so much that they were foreigners or of a different skin complexion or a different hair texture, but because they would lead you into false worship. So don't marry someone who does not have the same belief system as you and is going to lead you away from your convictions of what you understand to be right and wrong and who the true God is. The Bible says, of the nations concerning which the Lord Yahweh said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they would turn away your heart after their gods. And friends, this was first mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 1 through 4. And if you think that culture, if you think that skin complexion is going into eternity, you're wrong. Even marriage is not going into eternity. In the owner's manual in Matthew 22, verse 30, we find out that God tells us, Jesus tells us that there will be no marriage in the resurrection of life, friends. For in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven. Matthew 22, verse 30. So here we are down here, being so concerned about these marriages and if we're going to be interracially married and all the hoopla and ups and downs and woes and trials of that, but yet in the resurrection, we're not married. And let me say this is maybe going to blow some of your minds. It was God who created the human divide. So what do you mean, Brother Gordon? It was God who intentionally created the ethnic differences in cultures so that men would not come together, would not cleave together. In Genesis chapter 11, verses 1 through 9, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. That is verse 1. And then in verse 4, it says, and they said, go, let us build a city and tower whose top may reach unto heaven. So humanity was coming together. It was this one world nation of a sort, one world order of a sort. And they wanted to build a tower that reached to heaven. I wonder why, so they would not be destroyed again by a flood. I wonder. And they were all coming together to be as God, wanted to sit in the heavens on the temple in the sides of the north like God, right? They wanted to ascend into the heavens. So God came down, investigated the work and says, man, as long as men are working together like ants, there is nothing they cannot and will not do. It is not good for humanity to have this level of cohesiveness because they can do evil things and too greater things for themselves when they all work together. So what did God do? In verse 7, he says, let us go down and there confound or confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So imagine you are there building, you're telling your friend, pass me this block, and you turn around and now you start to speak Spanish. He starts to speak Italian. Someone else starts to speak Indian, and all these different dialects just exist in languages now exist instantaneously in one day, and that all the people who speak the same language would be grouped together. And so the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and he left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because God did there confound the language of all the earth, friends. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Yahweh scattered them. So this is important. And this may sound strange to you, but as I look at this text in the owner's manual, I see that when we are coming together, when we are, going against the ethnic and cultural differences that God created at the Tower of Babel, we are essentially swimming upstream when we get interracially married. Like just by nature is what I'm saying now. Just by the simple pure fact that you are now marrying someone of a different culture, different ethnicity, different foods, different, like you're swimming upstream versus if you were to marry someone of the same dialect, same language, same culture, you would be swimming down. It would just be an easier swim. So know this, friends. Just understand what you are getting yourself into when you decide to be involved in an interracial marriage or to be interracially married, okay? Or in an interracial, biracial relationship maybe, right? Even amongst other, two biracial people coming together, right? Like you have to just factor all that in because these ethnic differences do exist. And it was God's intention that they exist so that we would remain divided. How's it going to impact your children? It's got to factor that in. Are you ready to deal with racism, ethnocentrism, people not liking you maybe because of who you are, because of how you look, pardon me, because of who you are, because of how you look. All right? Can you handle it? There are risks. There are trials. Are you informed? Or are you completely ignorant? Do you not even think or know? I have friends that have grown up in the bubble and don't even know that this exists. Like, what? No, man, whoever you want, everything is going to be hunky-dory. Easy. Easy, right? This is something God had done in separating us. And now as we put ourselves back together, we're bringing in all that division with us. Not to say it can't work. Like I said at the beginning, I have many a friend who are interracially married and they're just fine. Have biracial children, they're just fine. But if you speak to them, it is not free. I mean, I guess life is not free, right? From struggle. But when you can choose where you live, you can make a determination of what struggles to some degree that you are willing to take on. So be prayerful, friends, about this. This is a huge decision, huge decision. Huge decision. Decision. There we go. That's the word. There we go. What the Bible doesn't tell us, okay? In the resurrection, what color do you think you're going to be, friends? People are funny about this. We're so caught up in color down here. Some of us are so caught up in the color of someone's skin. We're going to be like the angels in the resurrection, okay? I believe that we're going to have a skin color that we ain't never seen before. So we're down here in our ignorance, in our ignorance, in our hatred, in our buffoonery, being racist and so forth. And it's just, that's not going into the kingdom, friends. That's not going into the kingdom. And we're going to have new bodies, okay? Culture. Some of us are caught up on our culture. New Jerusalem should be the Christian's culture, friends. That's the eternal culture. Whatever goes on in New Jerusalem, whatever music is played there, whatever food is eaten there, whatever dialect or language is spoken there, that is the culture that you and I are going to be a part of for all eternity. So don't be so enamored by your culture here and by who you are here that you lose sight of this is going to go away. You can't take that with you into we're coming up in a new country, a new land, a new heaven, and a new earth. All this is going to change. So when you're down here trying to fight and hold on to earthly things, temporal things, I don't know if that makes sense. Lock into the eternal culture, the heavenly culture that's going to go on for all eternity, friends. I mean, if we're down here trying to undo the Tower of Babel, I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if we're going to be able to undo what is going on what went on at the Tower of Babel. There's only 19%, maybe go to 20% of people who are most of the world, 80+% of the world is staying within their own ethnic groups to maintain their own culture, etc. So I think we have to pick our battles wisely, be content and confident in what decisions we've made, and be realistic with them and be ready for whatever may come because of those decisions that we've made. I want to say this. Sometimes I often get this question in ministry, well, what color is God? As if that matters about anything. And usually these two things that come across my table, it's like, well, Jesus was not, historically speaking, Brother Gordon, Jesus was not European. He was of Jewish descent. Agreed. And then I'm oftentimes brought to Revelation chapter 1, verses 13 to 15. And it says, and in the midst of the 7 candlesticks was one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. This is Jesus, friends. Yeshua. He said, and his hair was like wool, as white as snow. And his eyes were as eyes of a flame of fire, and his feet like of fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And they're like, Brother Gordon, look, Jesus is a Negro. He's black. Friends, let me remind you of something very important. God is light. God is light. And friends, what color is light? Light is made up of all the colors of the rainbow, including red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. God is light. Let us be concerned with the content of the character and not the color of the skin. I'm Gordon McGee. This is No Pills, Love Fully Scripted. I'm signing off, and I'll catch you next week.